Hi, this is what we're presenting for you this evening. A bit of nicely roasted in the air fryer pork belly, Moo Grob, which can be eaten with almost any vegetable dish, and it's chopped up into tasty little morsels which all have their own bit of crackling on top. Absolutely perfect. There's not so many ingredients really, because we're just preparing this pork to go with a quantity of different dishes. But basically we've got here, my wife is going to show you, it's pork belly or belly of pork. And as you can see, this is a piece that's about 700 grams. It's got the skin on it, and it's also got a lot of meat on it. Everybody adores crackling with roast pork, and nobody ever gets enough of it. The wonder of cooking this is that you get a bit of crackling on every piece, but you need to get the whole piece of skin to crackle. So there, we've got 700 grams there, and later on it will be mixed with, it will be prepared with, let me get that right, it'll be prepared with a tablespoon of vinegar and a teaspoon of salt. But for the moment, we start off by just taking it and putting its skin down in boiling water. Just like that. And we'll leave that for 20 minutes. But before we leave it, you can eat this with bean sprouts, you can eat it with kale, bok choy, asparagus, you can put it in pad thai. It's extremely popular in fried rice and pad kaprao. It is a way of eating pork with a little bit of crunchy skin in almost, there's so many different dishes. Wherever you need meat, you can put this. Anyway, it boils like this slowly for about 20 minutes. You must check. Don't leave this boiling away. You must check to see that the water stays enough to keep the boiling period alive, as it were. We have now done 20 minutes here, and so we're about to take it out. Here it goes, it's out, and we take it out and place it on the chopping board, face up, as it were. Now, the next stage is to prepare it with the vinegar and the salt. So you scrape off the bit of fatty business and start puncturing it fairly viciously. Puncturing it as you can with a fork, holding it in place, and you want to puncture it all over with, of course, a nice sharply pronged fork. And you puncture. And you carry on like this until you've completed. As I mentioned earlier, this is a piece of pork, 700 grams, which will feed certainly enough people in enough dishes. You can use a smaller piece of pork, and whereas the boiling time will be the same, because it needs to prepare the skin and prepare the meat, the actual cooking time, as we will show, will possibly be less. But for the moment, we carry on with this piece that was 700 grams to begin with. I mean, usually people don't eat more than 100 grams of meat. Moo Grob, as this is so delicious because of the crackling, if nothing else, that people probably will tend towards eating more than 100 grams per person. I don't know that 700 grams would feed 7 people because it is so delicious. But still, you carry on, you puncture it all over the place with the fork because the vinegar and the salt has to seep in. And this is important if you like the crackling and also if you like the flavour of the meat. It's absolutely delicious, even in pad kapau or fried rice or the other ones I didn't mention before, which were it's often used with we fry it with gui chai, which is Chinese garlic, I think they call it in the markets. It's a long plant, a bit like chives, but it has flowers on the end of it. Gui chai, it's absolutely delicious, terribly good for your insides as well. It's also very popular, this, with morning glory, pak bung, fried with pak bung, or with Chinese cabbage, pakat cow. Anyway, so there we are. We punctured it, well punctured. Now the vinegar gets tipped into one of my favourite little plastic blue plates, which I love, as you know, and stir around, dissolve the sugar in the vinegar, as much as, not sugar, salt, sorry, salt in the vinegar, stir it around, dissolve it, and then baste the piece of pork belly with this liquid. Goddamned iPhones, you know, I accidentally pressed the wrong button and of course the whole thing then falls apart and Siri asks me what I want to do. This is absolutely hopeless. Baste the whole piece of pork with the mixture of vinegar and salt and cover it, rub it all around with a teaspoon. Make sure that nearly all of it has got, even the corner bits have been well done. You can do the end bits as well, as thing always covers everything, like so. And even if there's a bit extra left over, well, just spoon it on. Spoon it on. There's never no harm in applying a bit more. And now that's ready. So we go on to the next process, which is to slice it up into, well, not exactly slicing. What we're doing here is, how do I put this?
Make it easy when it's crisp to start chopping up.
To make it easy when it's crisp, when you start chopping it up, right? You just score through the skin.
Yeah, but not deep to the meat, only just for the fat.
Right, go through the fat. Don't go too deep into the meat. And just do lines across it, because of course this helps we're going to be putting it in the air fryer in a minute, and this helps in the cooking all the way through and will help you produce crackling that is really worth chomping on. I don't mean chomping on as in mushroom, I mean chomping on as in English, chomping on. So you go through like that, and then it's ready to give it a last little covering of the salt and vinegar marinade. It's a sort of marinade, but it's not a marinade, but it is a sort of marinade. And now we just need to get the air fryer ready, and then we'll get back to you. Okay, so carrying on from where we were before, there is a piece of pork belly, nicely prepared, garnished with its marinade, which isn't a marinade, but which is, and ready to go in the air fryer. Now the air fryer, which I strongly recommend Tefal, partly because it's European, but partly because it's cute. And everything we've had that's Tefal has always worked well. The air fryer is set on 200, right, the measure at the top, 200 degrees centigrade, and we pop it in there. We've put it on already to just prepare the heating process. So one just plonks it in, skin facing up into the air fryer, and pop it back into the air fryer, where we will leave it now for almost an hour. Yes, it seems like a long time, but during that hour we need to come back and turn it over about every 15-20 minutes to make sure that the heat is universally dispersed across it. And we have a plate ready for when it comes out. Okay, it's been going about 15 minutes. You hear poppings and zoop and stuff from it, but after about 15 minutes it's a good idea to turn it. This is how it looks after 15 minutes. It's beginning to go. So you just use a pair of, not tweezers, what are they called? I can't remember what they're called in English. You turn it over like so. Look underneath, it's beginning to go as well, and slip it back in. Okay, and we'll have a look in another 15 minutes. Okay, here we are, another 15 minutes gone. So we look, and there we go. Hang on. Beginning to look rather good. So it's time for another turn. There we go. And pop it back in. Okay, it's almost 15 minutes again. And when we check it, we see that it's beginning to go pretty well. Lots of oil has come out of the pork. It seems to be working okay. So we turn it over again, and we're going to reduce the heat a bit, because sometimes it cooks faster than we think. So it's going down to about just under 190, sort of 180, 185. Whoops, I should think. Right, it's been about another 10-15 minutes, and the smell is absolutely delicious. So we reckon we're turning it one more time. It's beginning to look very well cooked throughout. And looking at the top, you can see the skin's bubbling well, but it's still a bit skinny, as it were. So we're popping it back in, and we'll leave it for another 10 minutes or so. Okay, we've come to the end of the time, and we reckon that it's about an hour now. One can't be too sure. And so we're going to take it out. Look at that. I mean, look at that. Who ever heard about pork crackling? It's very much up to your own eye, and you test it out, and if you tap it on the top, you see it's quite firm and quite crisp. Probably, let's see how close the, look at that, still sizzling a bit. And we turn the air fryer off. Now it's important to just leave it for the moment until it's cooled a bit before chopping it up. So once you have your piece out of the air fryer, it can be easily cut along the lines, the incisions that were made earlier on, and then you cut it across the, you see each of those pieces is rather nice. And by cutting it into small bits, this is the outside, so it needs a bit of brute ferocity. But when you get to a piece like this, it's lovely because you cut it into smallish pieces. And when that's mixed up with your pakat cow, your cabbage or your morning glory, or asparagus or fried rice, pieces like that, there is still fat in it, but not that much. And every mouthful gives you a piece of lean meat, I mean cooked, but lean meat, and a little bit of fat and a bit of crunchy topping. Now, anybody who's ever made sausages will know that the flavour of pork really comes from the fat. So although you don't want much, you have to have some. And in every piece here, you have a little bit of fat, but you have a bit of the crunchy stuff as well. And so anybody who likes crackling on roast pork can have it in every mouthful with a dish that can be from just ordinary fried rice to something that is cooked as we've shown in our pakat cow and our pat gaprao. And the flavour bursts out of every mouthful because you have the meat and the fat and the crispy topping. So there you are. There's your Moo Grob now. Enjoy. It's going to be gorgeous. And I just wanted to tell you, I've just tried a piece. It's absolutely lovely. Crunchy on the top and beautifully flavoursome inside. No wonder I'm still fat. Enjoy!
Enjoy.